What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Lieutenant Nathaniel Flint of the Landship Scorpios, and we're moving right along to talk about the PDFs and the units for the Blight Reinforcement box. If you haven't checked out our other video on the Allied Reinforcement box, do so. It'll be somewhere. It'll be linked, or it'll be in the cards, or wherever, but definitely check out that one. That one was first, but this one will be less discussion about the reinforcement boxes themselves, and hopefully it'll be a little bit shorter because we're just talking about the unit stats. So let's jump right into that. All right, without any further ado, let's get right into the Blight Reinforcement box. So we'll kind of start off with the same thing as I did with the Allies, which is reminding you that the Blight Reinforcement boxes is basically the Blight units from several different of classic Rivet Wars expansions. This is mostly going to be War Room, Spearhead, Heavy Metal, and then there's a few other bonuses thrown in. Maybe we'll talk about them, I'm sure. So starting off this video, we are talking about the Trench Raiders. The Trench Raiders are an amazing Blight infantry unit. They cost 1 deployment point to get out on the field. They have a movement of 1, and we see that they have 1 armor type. They're armor type 1, and they have 1 health. So they are a pretty typical infantry unit so far. We see that they only have 1 land range and no air range. So they are close combat. So they're going to have to get up there. However, they do have 1 attack that is a blast attack, that they blast into a area, and they get 4 dice against armor type 1. 4. That is amazing. We can now see that thanks to their unit art with their gas masks, they gain immune to gas in Reloaded. And they also have Runner 2. They get +2 movement when they begin their movement on a trench. That is quite good. So they are going to at least be able to run up trenches or run off of bunkers and other things like objectives to get right into the fight to make as much use of their 1 blast attack as they can, charging enemy positions. This is quite a solid infantry unit for the Blight. That massive armor type 1 attack is going to be pretty good against allied infantry, which the Blight have some issues with their infantry. So having someone that can go and hopefully get an attack off or 2 against an enemy position like an objective or a bunker that you're trying to clear is going to be very helpful. So A+. I love it so far. I love some of the changes. I really wish that they would have gotten something that would have let them move and then attack in the combat phase, some kind of rapid assault. But honestly, that might be too powerful for their 1 blast attack power. So we'll just have to wait and see how they end up working in the game as a whole. But this is a solid infantry unit for the Blight. Next up, we have the Angriff Hundefuhrer. Not pictured here. This is one of the errors of the work in progress PDFs. We'll put up a picture, even if it's the old ones. We do have them. They are a allied infantry unit. This is their handler unit. So we see that they have 3 deployment points. They have 1 movement. They are armor type 1, and they have 1 health. So this is very similar to the other handler on the allied side. They only have a range of 1, a land range of 1 with no air range. They get 1 attack with 1 dice against armor type 1 and 2. So again, they're not really very good fighters of getting really up in there in the fight. But based on their special, that's not really their purpose. They have handler Kampfhund as an action. They deploy 1 Kampfhund. I think it's Kampfhund. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little bit. They deploy 1 Kampfhund for free in this unit's area as an action. This unit can only use this action if there are fewer Kampfhunds deployed than Angriff Hundefuhrer. Yeah, that for as long as there are less dogs than there are the handlers, they can just deploy dogs with their action. So the main thing about these guys are going to be their dogs, their Kampfhund. So let's go look at the Kampfhunds to see what is so great about them that the handlers cost so much. So first off, they have no deployment point cost because they're deployed by an action. They are considered an infantry unit, as we talked about with the guard dogs. They have a movement of 2, and they are armor type 1 with 1 health. So a pretty solid infantry unit, and they can move a little bit easier than what we saw those guard dogs in the allied side. They only have a range of 1, which makes sense. They basically have a melee attack. But as we can see, they get quite a boost to those attacks. They do get 1 attack, but they get 3 dice against armor type 1. They're very good at going after those lightly armored units like infantry, and they get 1 dice against armor type 2. Quite a good spread for the Kampfhunds. Over in the specials, we see something very interesting. The Kampfhund has the special Rapid Assault 1, which lets them move during the attack phase up to 1. So they can move to get into that 1 land range and then make their attacks. Very, very cool. As we also talked about in the guard dog section of the Allied video, they also count as infantry units. So these dogs can control a strategic objective, taking down the enemy flag, as well as control it in the control phase, putting up their own, the Blight flag. So very solid. They have a decent movement of 2 compared to other infantry units for the Blight. And their attacks are pretty good, especially against other infantry. This is a solid infantry unit. And considering that they are quote unquote for free by being an action of their handlers, it very well could be worth getting 2 handlers or so to basically get a Kampfhund out every round that you don't have enough of them out, and just get them up and into the fight as quickly as possible. Very, very cool. Huge thumbs up. I really do like this unit. I fought against a few people who are adamant on using the Kampfhunds in other games, and they proved that I had underestimated them greatly. I think with the addition of Rapid Assault, this Kampfhund is the Blight dog is much more combat focused, and I think that's only going to make them more formidable. Definitely do not undervalue them like I did. Their ability to control objectives and get to them pretty quickly, and basically be a free infantry unit that you can keep busting out as needed, that's not to be made fun of. Like, don't underestimate them. Next up, we have Lieutenant Dora Rollen, not pictured here. Lieutenant Dora Rollen is a Blight hero infantry. She will cost 2 deployment points and 1 rivet. We see that she has a movement of 3, so she's quite good at getting around the field. We see that she has armor type 1 and 2 health. She is a little squishy, but has a little bit more survivability than the average infantry unit. She only has a land range of 1 and no air range, which is a little short, but we do see that she does have 2 attacks where she gets 2 dice against armor type 1 and 1 dice against armor type 2. So, I mean, that's pretty good if she can get close to enemy units and stay alive. She does have some solid attacks to support other units. Of course, as always, the big thing for Lieutenant Dora Rollen is her special, which is Springboard 1. Other friendly units that end their movement in her area may immediately move 1 additional area. So they basically get a movement of 1 immediately. So she's pretty good for getting kind of midway through the map to help move units up a little farther than they would normally. This also works for rapid assaults as well as regular movement in the movement phase. So it's just that much better having her kind of midway on the map or in no man's land to help other units get up into the fight just that little bit quicker of that one additional movement. Here we have the Mark IV mount. We spent a lot of time talking about mounts in the Allied video. This is no different. So we'll cover it really quickly. It is considered a support unit with a plug slot. It is 1 deployment point. It is armor type 2 with 2 health, so it's just enough to be a little annoying. And its main gimmick is that you can put a non-hero plug into it anywhere on the field. So it's got immune to gas as a special, and it has defense system where this unit may be deployed in any area in friendly territory. Hero plugs cannot be attached to it. So anywhere in your friendly territory, you can deploy one of these, and then because it's into friendly territory, it can have a plug deployed in it, and it can act as a little defense force against enemy units. Depending on the game type or the scenario that you are running, this could be really big if you're going to retreat from an area, or you're going to have an area move and have be forced back as deployment changes. These could be very strong, leaving these behind for your opponent to deal with just that extra bit of annoying for them. I also love to heavily use these in homebrewed or custom scenario situations, pre-deployed on the board for the defensive force against an attacking or charging force. All in all, as I said with the other mount in the Allied video, I absolutely love the additions and changes they made to these mounts and the bases in Allied and Blight, and I really think that it'll be very interesting to see how they end up being used in Reloaded. Here we have one of the iconic units. I would truly say iconic of classic Rivet Wars. In his full glory, it's Baron Munchen from the Blights. He is a Blight hero infantry unit. We can see that he's got 3 deployment points and 1 rivet to get out on the field. He has a bounty. We can see that he has a movement of 1, but he does have over here in his specials runner 1, so he can keep up with infantry through the trenches and things. He's armor type 2, but he does have 3 health to kind of help him get a little beefy. He does have a 2 land range and no air range, but at those 2 land range, he does get 2 chain attacks, which are very solid. They can touch every unit that is deployed on the field. So they have 2 dice against armor type 1 and armor type 2, and they have 1 dice against armor type 3 and that really big beefy armor type 4. His other special is immune to gas, which is very in lore for him. And that's it. He's just a solid hero unit to see out on the field. He's pretty much a no-brainer. It would not, like, you wouldn't be wasting a deployment getting him out on the field. He's quite powerful if he can get in range, and he just can keep up with the other infantry units. And with the Blight going hard on gas, it's a good thing that he's immune to gas. So now we'll talk a little bit about his hero plug. So as a hero plug, he is 2 deployment points and 1 rivet to get out on the field. He does have a land range of 2 and an air range of 0. He has no specials, so it's just his attack, which is 1 blast attack this time against everyone in an area, and that is 2 dice against armor type 1 and armor type 2, which is pretty solid, and 1 dice against armor type 3 and armor type 4. So as a plug, he is quite solid as well. He has a good, strong attack, and he's trading in those chain attacks for a blast attack. So it's just very solid through and through. Again, it's good to see him back. He's an iconic Blight unit, and he's a solid unit and a solid plug. There really isn't a reason not to use him, especially with the new rules where you can put out a hero and their plug, just not at the same time in one game. So, I mean, that's solid. There's no reason not to add him to the rotation. And here we have from War Room, we do have General Beckendorf, who is a support unit. This is his non-plug form. I think in classic Rivet Wars, it's General Rommler's Battle Wagon, or whatever it was, like Battle Wagon or Tank Wagon. But this is just General Beckendorf, not as a plug. He is a hero support unit. I do love those quite a bit. He costs 3 deployment points and 1 rivet to get out in the field. And he does have this one bounty that we can see right here. He has 2 movement, so that's probably his armored car that he drives around in, giving him some additional movement. He does have armor type 2 and 2 health, giving him a little bit more survivability than the average bear. He has solid attacks. He has 2 land range and 1 air range. Pretty good. He also has 2 attacks that can touch almost anything that's put out in the field. So he has 1 dice against armor type 1 and that big hefty armor type 4. So that's really good, but we can see that he gets some additional dice against, he gets 2 dice against armor type 2 and 2 dice against armor type 3, making him a pretty solid unit all around, being able to control the battlefield. When we go over to his specials, we can see that he has immune to gas, which is good and solid, but we also see that he buffs 2 things, which is really awesome. He buffs +1 land range. Units in this unit square gain a +1 buff when they activate on this turn. That is included for him, bringing his land range up to 3. Very good, very solid. Bringing him up to par with a lot of artillery units, but also buffing that land range for other people. But he also has precision 1. This unit adds +1 to its dice rolls when attacking. So all of its dice rolls, instead of hitting on only a 5 or a 6, they also hit on a 4 now. So what we end up seeing is, even though it doesn't increase the amount of dice rolled, it does do more for those dice rolls. Very solid, and he buffs those too. So he's a, I believe, 2 space sized unit, so either 2 infantry or another support unit or cavalry unit. So he will give them +1 land range, and then he's going to give them precision on all of their dice rolls where they hit on a 4 instead of just a 5 and up. That is solid. Very solid unit. Very good support. Again, he's being that support role in the group. I love it. I just had the idea of putting them up with Moldenstein, so they both buff each other's land range, making a crazy duo, but making an area that the Allied will definitely want to attack. But wow, just a solid unit. I really like the flavor and the range that they can have. Good, solid support unit. Worth the cost. And next up, we have the Iron Chancellor, again, not pictured here. The Iron Chancellor is another hero infantry unit for the Blight. He does have 1 bounty. He's got 3 deployment points and 1 rivet to be deployed. We're seeing 1 movement, so we can't move that fast. He's armor type 1 as well, but he's given a little bit more survivability by having 3 health. We see that he has 1 land range and 1 air range, where he gets 1 attack, where he can attack 2 dice rolls against armor type 1 and 1 dice roll against armor type 2. So that's pretty okay, but just like Uncle Rivet before him, the Iron Chancellor isn't about really doing a lot of damage by themselves. They are about getting up the field onto those objectives and using their specials. Their specials are rally point. If this unit's on a strategic objective, you can deploy units in that area. Since it's on an SO, it can only be infantry units, but that's pretty solid. And war bonds. If this unit is on a strategic objective at the start of the deployment phase, you gain +1 deployment points for that deployment phase. That is amazing. So basically, you can deploy infantry units right on the strategic objective that they are occupying, further making it that much easier to control it, to put up your flag. But also, they get war bonds to make sure that at bare minimum, you have one extra deployment point to get one extra guy on that thing with him. It is a good, solid strategy. And if left unchecked, can be quite annoying to have up to 3 other infantry spawning every round right on an objective. That could be quite the interesting thing if left unchecked. So a very cool unit. Great to have him back from War Room. Next up, we have a plug unit that costs 3 deployment points. It's the Grenade Turret. The Grenade Turret has 3 land range and no air range, but that's quite the range for a grenade thing. He has 1 blast attack, very cool, and that blast attack is definitely meant to be anti-infantry with those grenades. So they get 3 dice against armor type 1, very solid, with 1 dice against armor type 2. So this is a great plug for going after infantry and going after whoever else they might be supporting. And wherever they're bunching up, plug this onto a tank and let them have that additional range, as well as clearing out those areas or those bunkers or those objectives of those lower armored infantry units. A great solid unit here, a good plug. Not a lot else to say about them, so we'll call it good for now. Here we have it, straight from heavy metal, the moment you've all been waiting for. Gryphon's Hammer. The Gryphon's Hammer is crazy. They are a tank unit, not a support unit, unless they are considered a support unit. I wonder if that's a change or not. I'm pretty sure they're considered a tank unit, but maybe they've changed that. I wonder if I sent that as feedback. Anyways, I will assume that this is a mistake, but it's a tank unit with 2 plug slots, so that's pretty big. It costs 6 deployment points and 3 rivets to get out in the field. Very, very expensive. But it has 3 bounties. When this thing gets on the field, it literally becomes an objective in and of itself. Taking this down and getting 3 bounties, 3 victory points towards the score could be a make or break for a strategy in the game. It has a movement of 2, which is pretty good. It is armor type 4, that big armor type 4. That is very good, and it has 6 health, so it can take a lot of damage that is coming at it. Again, this being basically a mobile bunker, like basically an objective when it is deployed. The Gryphon's Hammer is good at one thing, and that is range. It has land range 3 with 0 air range. It is about being an artillery unit, attacking units from far away. It gets 1 attack that is a blast attack, but it gets 3 dice against every armor type in the game. 3 dice against armor type 1, 2, 3, and against other armor type 4s. So powerful. Its specials only give it a little bit more survivability with that immunity to gas, which a lot of tanks have, makes sense. But also Juggernaut 2, where it can move into areas containing only enemy infantry, cavalry, or support units. So basically just not other enemy tank units. And resolve a 2 dice attack against all those units in that area. Units not destroyed by this attack are moved 1 area away by their player. So very good. It just runs over all sorts of units that are trying to come after it. But honestly, I'm not sure how much use you would get out of that Juggernaut. The Gryphon's Hammer is about range. It's about touching everything on the battlefield from a decent ways away. Definitely making use of its plug slots to get any sort of blind spot it might have. You definitely want to plug that has an air range to help protect it. Any plug that would buff its range even further or give it precision or anything like that is going to make this one of the most deadly units in the game. Not even pretending. This is a solid unit. It's great to see it back. A+. And here we have a plug that's gotten a little bit of a touch-up since classic Rivet Wars. We have the Flamme Turret, or the Flamme Turret. It is a plug. It costs 2 deployment points. It has a land range of 2, but no air range. But that's okay. It gets 1 carpet bombing attack. Very cool. And that attack is going to have 2 dice against armor type 1 and 1 dice against armor type 2. So carpet bomb lets it basically have that attack 2 grids instead of 1, but they have to be adjacent. So it's basically going 2 up, and I believe that they need to be within its land range. Like, they both need to be within its land range. I'm not sure if clarification has come on that or not, but it doesn't matter. Even if they both the grids need to be within 2 land range, this is very good for just that flamethrower sweeping through an area, trying to attack units and push them back from whatever pluggable unit you've plugged this into. It is a solid choice. It helps with that anti-infantry and that area control of whatever tank unit needs this. I love it. Solid Flamme Turret, and a good upgrade with that carpet bomb attack style, new to Reloaded. It'll be very interesting to see how this is used going forward. Next up, we have Otto Kuleman. He is a hero plug for the Blight. He costs 3 deployment points and 1 rivet to get him into a unit on the field. He doesn't have any attack of his own, so we only have his special to go off of. And his special is Can Opener. This unit deals +1 damage when it does hit a tank unit. This is very good. This is very different from the Otto Kuleman of the classic Rivet Wars, but it gets that new special Can Opener that just makes tank units that much more deadly, especially against other tanks. A lot of tanks on the field, this could be a death sentence, doing 2 damage instead of 1 on a hit. This being like the Sturmpanzer or the Gryphon's Hammer really could ensure that Blight control the field with armored units and not putting up with allied or Nemoan tanks on the field. Otherwise, there's not much else to say besides that I can understand why you would pay such a high price to get him out on the field. I mean, he's solid. Next down on the line is one of my favorite units. Not really to use, just by lore and like aesthetics wise and how it works. It is the Plague Trooper for the Blight. They are a infantry unit that costs 2 deployment points to get on the field. They only have 1 movement, and they are armor type 1 with 2 health. So they are quite squishy, but I guess they're in line with other infantry units. We can see that they have 1 land range, so it's basically a melee attack going up against other units. They get 1 chain attack. That's important to make note of for a special later on. But they get 3 dice against armor type 1. Very good. So they're anti-infantry basically. And they get 1 dice against armor type 2. So good. But the crux of this unit is in its specials. So let's talk about its special. First off is an action. If it can't attack, it might as well dash and move this unit 1 additional square during the combat phase instead of attacking. That's pretty good. But when it does attack, it gets the Infect. Infect. When this unit destroys an enemy infantry unit, roll a d6. On a roll of 4 or more, so a 4+, deploy a Plague Trooper for free in this unit's area. The new unit can't attack this turn. Infect has no effect on units with immune to gas. Basically, you attack an enemy. When you destroy an infantry unit, so you get 3 dice to do so. You get to roll on a d6 to see if they come back as another Plague Trooper. So good. It's a zombie attack. It's like a zombie survival. I love it so much. Even though these Plague Troopers take on more of a skeletal look, it doesn't matter. It's so good. In given time, and you attack enough infantry, they can just keep on multiplying, creating quite the conundrum for allied units. So good. And with a chain attack, you only got a hit, and then you can chain through the square. In theory, that could be... you probably wouldn't get a whole 3, but at most it would be adding 3 more plague troopers for free into your same square. So good. So good. I'm very excited to be getting more of these. I want to do some custom like zombie survival things where you get to play with allied and blight troops, but the zombies are coming for you one way or another and you got to defend. So I'm excited to have more of these guys on the field. As with the Clockwork Troopers, of which that they second, the only thing about them is they have Oblivious, where this unit doesn't count as occupying strategic objectives as far as placing flag tokens down or scoring. So they can clear out these objectives, but they can't remove enemy flags or control them. So you're going to want to pair them up with other infantry who can make use of the clearing effect that these units will have, and then be able to act on those objectives that plague troopers aren't going to be able to act on. So good to see them back and being an official unit in a box. So I love it. Next up, we have R100. R100 is a Blight infantry hero. He has 1 bounty that we can see right there. He has 3 deployment points and 1 rivet to deploy out onto the field. We can see that he has a movement of 2. He's armor type 3. Ooh, that's pretty strong. And he has 3 health. So he's basically tank level armor type out there in the world, and he's quite beefy. And being a armor type 3 hero who can get in to strategic objectives and bunkers and kind of sit pretty there, that's going to be pretty big. So he's only got a land range of 1 and no air range, so he's basically melee attacks. But, wow, he gets 3 attacks that can hit any unit that can be deployed. So good. So he has 2 dice against armor types 1, 2, and 3. So he's going to be able to just wail on tanks. He's going to be able to just clear out infantry. Very good. And he also gets 1 dice against armor type 4. So if you can get him up close to, say, the double play, he can just have 3 attacks, 3 attempts to do damage against that big unit. So cool. So we see in the specials that he has immunity to gas, probably because he's a robot. So that makes a lot of sense. But I also want to talk about... Hello, dear viewers. This is Nate from the future. My entire audio for this video, about 20 minutes left, all is corrupt. All of it. It's corrupt on the original raw recording all the way through. There's nothing. From this point on, it is chipmunk sounds for no reason at all. So here I am from the future, after being editing through most of this, to re-record the last bit of this video. I'm very tired. Did not want to do this. So it cut off talking about the specials. So let's jump right in. All right, we see in R100 specials that they are immune to gas, giving them just that extra bit of survivability, which is quite good. We also see that they have the special programmed. Programmed, this unit must move its full movement each turn, if possible, without re-entering areas during its movement. So this kind of feels like the limiting factor for this unit. We've been talking a lot up to this moment about how great they are, being armor type 3 with 3 health, and being an infantry unit, so that they can get into these points of interest like bunkers and strategic objectives. What we are seeing from this, however, is that with programmed, they must move their full movement and cannot re-enter spaces they've already been in. So it's going to be really difficult to land them onto a strategic objective or a bunker perfectly, but also they're not going to be able to just stay there. Each turn, they are going to need to move up their full movement. So this does seem to be the limiting factor for this unit, is they're not really going to be able to like camp in a certain position and hold it down as a big beefy infantry unit. They are going to need to be moving across the field, and with only a 1 land range, it makes sense that they're going to be charging towards enemies to make the most use out of them as possible while on the field. All in all, I do like R100 as a concept. I don't end up using them as much. Usually it's because with the allied players I play against, they are very, very good. I do feel that R100 is just giving them a victory point, just giving them the bounty. However, based on these stats, I feel like R100 has probably gotten a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a change in Reloaded, because I feel like this is way more survivable. Like, the strategy is pretty clear, is to charge him up at these points of interest or at higher armored units and just have them wail on them. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. The benefit of being future Nate going back and doing this is I'm going to try not to say that's solid as much or anything that you notice while editing. And let's now jump to R100, the Hero Plug. He costs 3 deployment points and 1 rivet to deploy into a pluggable unit. We can see he still gets an attack, 2 this time. He gets 2 attacks, but he still has that land range of 1 with an air range of 0. His 2 attacks are the same, where he gets 2 dice against armor type 1, 2, and 3, with 1 dice against armor type 4. Pretty good. So over in the specials, we do see that the programmed special still is brought over, where this unit must move its full movement each turn, if possible, without re-entering areas during its movement. So you'll be adding this to whatever unit you plug this into, which is a bit of a shame. It feels like you are putting a big investment into, like, most of these are going to be tank units. And then this plug itself is quite expensive. And then they're going to need to just constantly be moving, most likely towards the enemy to make the most use out of them. But then you see something. The next special, Assimilated. The unit this plug is attached to gains +1 armor type to a maximum of 4. Woo! Okay, that is a whole new ball game. This is an expensive unit for a reason. Holy crap. Adding a +1 armor type to most of these units, which besides a few examples that are escaping my mind right now, most of these units are going to be armor type 3. This is going to make most of these units armor type 4. That is going to be amazing. This is a Sturmpanzer that you're turning into an armor type 4 unit. That is amazing. Amazing stuff. Combined with the powerful attacks, this could be very big going up against other armor type 4 units, making a new unit like super beefy. This is really good. This is a solid plug unit, almost better than his infantry one. The strategy that I'm seeing is the ideal unit on the Blight side would be the Landskriger. You would want R100 in the Landskriger. Both the Landskriger and R100, I'm pretty sure, have a land range of 1. So there's incentive for both of them to get into that melee range, which would make use of both plugs' attacks. The Landskriger already doesn't have too much movement. Allowing it to move its full movement might not be that much, as long as it just keeps moving. I don't remember if the Landskriger has 1 or 2. I think it has 2 movement. Since it's incentivized to always be moving towards the enemy and harass them and get right up close to them, having programmed feels really good. And the Landskriger's thing that I am concerned about, which is survivability, which they did give it more survivability in Reloaded as is. Making that thing an armor type 4 is the ultimate move of survivability. Most of the allied units that can hit armor type 4 hit less on an armor type 4 than an armor type 3. And a lot of units that can hit an armor type 3 suddenly can't hit an armor type 4. You have turned that Landskrieger into a death machine that can just charge right at allied lines. Absolutely amazing. A+. I think that'll be the major strategy with an R100 Plug. And last but not least, hopefully we're keeping this short to try to shorten the video after all this. We do have Dr. Vorne. Dr. Vorne, it's great to see his return as a full Blight unit. I do believe that he was a neutral unit in War Room. However, he is very Blight leaning, unlike Rosie, who you could squint and make the thing. Like, obviously, Rosie the Riveter was an allies thing, and it's a reference to the real life character. However, Dr. Vorne is heavily a villainous character. So let's take a look at what he gets updated with Reloaded. We see he's a hero infantry unit for the Blight. He costs 2 deployment points and 1 rivet to get out on the field. They have 1 movement, and he is armor type 1, but he does get 2 health to help him survive a little bit longer. We also see that he is 1 bounty, giving that up upon death. He has a 2 land range and a 1 air range. That's actually pretty good, where he gets to make use of his 1 attack. He gets 3 dice against armor type 1, 2 dice against armor type 2, and 1 dice against armor type 3 and 4. So he is quite a solid attacker. However, what sets him apart does seem to be his special, which is the Healing Atom, which is an action. So that will take the place of his attack. Deal 1 damage to another friendly unit within 1 land range. If you do, remove up to 2 damage from another friendly unit within 1 land range. So this is quite interesting. So this is the Blight's healer. And what they are doing is dealing a single damage against an allied unit. So this would be basically sacrificing an infantry like a Panzerfaust or a Trench Raider and killing them. But in return, you get to heal up to 2 damage from another friendly unit. So the strategy would definitely be sacrificing a infantry that is a smaller unit with only 1 health, but is relatively cheap, to heal 2 damage from something bigger, like the Griffin's Hammer, like a Sturmpanzer, like a hero unit, and could really be a problem out on the field if all he needs is to sacrifice a cheap Panzerfaust, which you could flood the field with, just to keep healing these bigger units. He does need to be 1 land range away from both his victim and his healing, so that could keep him up in the fight and still being a juicy target, especially with 1 victory point. There's a lot of incentive for the Allies to get rid of him, but this is still a very solid unit. I feel like this is somehow more usable than his classic Rivet Wars version. I would need to refresh myself on exactly what the wording of the classic Rivet Wars Dr. Vorne was. Standalone, I do like this unit. I think that it is flavorful. I don't think it's as useful as Rosie the Riveter. Like, it's still not necessarily a healer. I kind of wish the Blight got some sort of vampiric healer who could do damage to an enemy unit and then transfer that as health to another unit. But all on its own, this fits the theming and the flavor. Dr. Vorne is like mad scientist, evil. He's got a lot of like Red Skull vibes with him. This definitely fits the lore, and the flavor of this unit is this sacrifice to achieve victory kind of deal. I do like it. I do like it. A+. And with that, we are finally done. Time to do my little scroll through of the models here so that we can see all the models. But that's it. That is the Blight Reinforcements. A lot of value here. There's a lot to like about this. It's still on its own $100, and it does split the factions. It does feel like it's still a a $200 minimum to, again, keep things balanced with both sides of your game of Rivet Wars Reloaded. However, you can see that there's a lot going on here. As I've said multiple times, a million times in the Allied video, I know from editing it, that this is multiple packs in one, with War Room, with Heavy Metal, and with Spearhead, as well as a few others that are sprinkled in. Like Rosie was a Kickstarter exclusive neutral unit for the Allies. So you can see where a lot of the value is coming from. However, it does feel quite expensive to split up the units like that, split up the factions. I guess you are kind of getting the value worth. A lot of people are going to want like the Plague Troopers for this one. A lot of people like the dogs, at least in my play group. I mean, a lot of people are going to want the Gryphon's Hammer. There are tons of plugs that give a lot of value, which are going to give a lot of value to your other sets, like even the core set. A lot of these sculpts are amazing. Baron Munchen, General Beckendorf sculpt here. Dora Rollen is an awesome, unique sculpt. The Iron Chancellor is going to look good for you painters. Like, there is a lot of value here. All in all, as I finished up the recording of the Allied, and now I'm redoing this one after editing most of the Blight video and doing the Aerial Aces one, which will be the next video to come out after this one. All in all, I do like it. I'm liking the feel of Rivet Wars Reloaded. I'm starting to understand things as I'm deep diving through these work in progress PDFs. Keep that in mind. They are work in progress PDFs that we got back in like November. Like I'm seeing things, what they've done. I'm seeing the changes that they made with some of the gameplay mechanics, or some of at least the nailing down mechanics and not having them as vague, which feel like changes to some people. I'm seeing the game come together. I'm seeing a game that is very well thought out. For now, the reinforcement boxes I still feel are a must-have. I do love these. There's a lot of absolutely banger units in both of these boxes. I mean, the Heavy Metal box was a must-have. It is a game changer, and it is so fun to have in your collections for classic Rivet Wars. I feel like this keeps it that way. Like, it is still such a good thing to have. I feel like there are a lot of good units. I feel like having Trench Raiders and the Mountaineers are going to be really good. However, this also does feel like extras. This feels like a luxury item. Vanguard, just like a second wave before it, feels like a must-have for your core box. It feels like it rounds out the game. I feel like a lot of the rules and the units are better rounded in the core box, but I feel like Vanguard is the obvious expansion to get Rivet Wars feeling like Rivet Wars, or at least the way I feel Rivet Wars feels like. A lot of these units feel like luxury items. It feels like a lot of heroes that are iconic and good and bring different things and all new strategies to the game. The Heavy Metal, which is so cool, and it's so cool to see these big tanks out on the field. In the end, they are luxuries. There's a lot of plugs brought in that will bring a lot of variety to your games. Trench Raiders and the Plague Troopers are straight up a luxury item. They are very gimmicky with the Clockwork Soldiers, very gimmicky, but very clear where they are supposed to be in the army and have very clear strategies with them. I mean, it feels like a luxury item, and for $200 for both, it really does feel like these expansions are for the fans, are for people who really get into it. But if you are a fan and you want everything that you can get your hands on, there is a lot here. You can definitely make the argument that each box is around $100 worth of value. For the wargaming hobby, of which this is like, Rivet Wars is like a stepping stone, that isn't a lot. So it feels good. All right, so if I'm re-recording this, I definitely want these to be smaller. The next video will be the Aerial Aces units, and then we will be done with at least unit stats from these work-in-progress PDFs that were released so long ago. Remember that fulfillment is in May. We're getting closer, which is why I'm really trying to get these videos out. And let me know what kind of videos you want to see in the future. I kind of want to do a rundown of some of the scenarios. I do want to do a rundown of some of the cards. Like I want to do some of the missions and talk about how those work. So what kind of videos do you want to see out of those work in progress PDFs that we all went through? So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully the audio on this will be good. I will definitely be double checking it before leaving this spot. And I will see you guys in the next video, which will be the Aerial Aces units. Check out the Rivet Wars playlist for other videos, and check out some of the other videos that I did on unit stats for those other things. So I will see you guys later.